Yesterday we were able to log in into machines, but there are still certain parameters which we had to still focus on. Okay, for example, we know how to give a private IP address now. Do we? Yes. Yesterday I had gone into a section of private IP and I have given an IP address of 192.168.33.100. Okay. Then I said that this is a private network which is between me and the virtual machine which I have created. What if someone else wants to connect to the machine? Okay. And you have created a private machine. Then I said that I would be using a concept which is called as port forwarding. Okay. And then the next one is, how do I sync folders? By default, I have shown you that the Vagrant folder is already synced. Yeah. And apart from that, how do I increase memory? Okay. And then we would go into a concept called as provisioning. Okay. So this would be my focus for today. Yeah. First thing, private IP and port forwarding. Okay. So what I would do is, okay, if I want to check whether this machine is running or not, yesterday's Vagrant's file. So Vagrant status. Okay. So current machine states VM is in aborted state. Okay. So I would do Vagrant. Makes sense? This is the same command. Whenever you want to start, use up. Whenever you want to stop, use halt. Vagrant halt will shut down your machine. Yeah. So now what I would do is, after this, I would remove the private IP for this machine. Okay. But if you remember, we had Apache server in that. If you remember, we had Apache server in that. And to test that Apache server, what was that? What is that I have done? Private IP address colon port 8 if you do, even if you don't give this. Okay. For example, yesterday we have done this, if I'm not wrong. http://192.168.33.100 and we got this page. Okay. That is because I have a private IP address for this machine. Okay. What if I have not given a private IP address and someone else wants to connect to this machine? All right. Okay. Or what if Satish wants to see this web page? Even if I have a private IP address, what if he wants to see my machine? Okay. So first thing is I would try with private IP address, and second thing is I would remove private IP address, but I should know how do I still access this page or any protocol for that matter. Since it is Apache, I'm going with port 80. But if you have launched a Tomcat, you would go with port 8080. MySQL, if you have installed, you want 3306 port. All of this. So any ports, whatever I want to create, okay, if they are part of private network is between me and the virtual machine. So for me, it is not a problem. But for someone else, how will it solve? Okay. So what I would do is, for any change, I would be going with Vagrant file changes itself. Okay. So let me open the Vagrant file. Okay. You remember this is what I have changed yesterday, right? You would see section like private IP address and all of that. Okay. Okay. Now what I would say is, you are seeing this, right? Port forwarding in this. I would tell that guest is your virtual machine. Okay. Host is your laptop. So I'm telling that try to create a mapping between port 80, okay, and port 9001. Okay. What is it I'm trying to do? I'm trying to create a mapping between port 80 and port 9001. Okay. So let me physically represent what is this. So this is my machine or laptop. I am writing it as laptop. It can be anything. Okay. Just for easier understanding, I'm writing it as a laptop. Okay. And in the laptop, I launched my Ubuntu virtual machine. Okay. Virtual machine. Okay. And there is a network between me and virtual machine. I don't have any problem connecting to this virtual machine because I know it's private IP. Okay, but the problem is there is some other laptop. Okay, let me write it as laptop 2. Okay, or your manager's laptop, and he wants to see the web page which you have, which the Ubuntu service or the Apache service which you have created, and he says that don't bring your system to me, I want to see it from my machine. Okay, one property is your laptop and your manager's laptop is in the same network. So your manager's laptop can ping your laptop, but it cannot ping the VM directly because VM doesn't belong to the network which you and your laptop are between. So VM has its own network between your laptop. So how do I connect now? Okay. So what I would do is, one thing would be easily create this VM in public network. That would solve the problem. But the problem is we have already created the VM. And now I can't recreate the VM in public network and make the stuff work. I can make the stuff work, but still, I don't want to go with the public route. In that case, how do you do that? So what I would do is, okay, every machine will have ports, right? Port 80, port 90, whatever it is. So what I'm trying to do is, my laptop has a port, right? So in my laptop, I'll pick one port. Okay. In my virtual machine, there are ports. Okay. And then I would try to create a mapping between my laptop's port and my VM's port. Okay, and my manager tries to ping the my laptop's port, which is being mapped to virtual machine's port, and the traffic will be redirected to it. So now what I have said is, this is going to be 9001 on my laptop, 9001. Map it to the virtual machine's 80 port. So whoever wants to access this, they will be accessing by my laptop's IP address :9001 should take them to 80 port of my virtual machine. This is the mapping which I'm speaking about. Okay, so is this clear now? Yeah, guest what? Yeah, guest 80 port is mapped to host 9001 port. Host is your machine, guest is virtual machine. Okay, host is always your laptop. So your laptop's 9001 port is mapped to 80 port of your virtual machine. And Ubuntu, the page which we are seeing, basically any HTTP protocol by default is hosted on port 80. So that's why I've created a mapping between 80. Okay, and now I have changed this file. And whenever you change anything in your file, okay, you have to do Vagrant reload, because just by saving that file, those changes will not be affected. That changes will be affected when you basically start the machine with those configurations. Vagrant reload is nothing but restart. So I am restarting this machine. So what is this? There is an error. Oh, it cannot set 9001. So it's not 90. I think that port is already in use. Let me use 8080. Okay. Already, if it is in use, it will not be able to set the port. Okay. So again, the same work. Vagrant reload. This will also work if I don't have Tomcat or any other 88. Let us see. If it fails, we can change the port number. That's fine. This time, if it fails, I will put 8081 because I'm quite sure that 8081 is not used. Yeah. 80. 81. Okay. Oh man, what is happening? 8081 cannot be in use. Okay. One minute. Let me start it normally. Vagrant, reload. If you see that there is already a port forwarding that is happening. 22 port is mapped to what? So if you want to log in into that machine, you can say Vagrant, okay, SSH, okay, Vagrant @ your machine's IP address and give the port as 42s. So even that works. Okay. So there is a port forwarding that is happening, but yeah, let us try to just look into it. What is the reason for failure? Okay. So sudo -i service Apache 2 status. Okay, fine. Things seems to be right. Let me try this one out with the other virtual machine. So cd dot make dir test, and I'm creating a test folder, and in here I'm doing Vagrant init ubuntu / trusty 64, and then I'd be opening that file in an editor, and then I try to set the same ports now. Let us see. Okay. Let me try with the normal setting which they have given. 80 is mapped to 8080. Okay, and after that I would install Apache service. So I'd be doing Vagrant map. I think I have to restart the machine, guys. I don't want to do it right now. It sounds like a strange reason, but restart works out here. Okay. So it says that 0.0.0.0 on port 9001. Man. Fine. So this is the only thing which I'd show you tomorrow, the port forwarding part, because I need to have a clear restart before it works, right? So basically what is happening over here is, what Vagrant is trying to do over here is, it will try to create a machine, and then you are seeing settings, right? Okay. It would go to the network. Okay. You are seeing the advanced settings, right? And port forwarding. This is what it has to set. So VirtualBox is not allowing it to set this. At a core, what is happening? This is what is happening. So probably if I, this problems generally come, restart solves this, especially in Windows kind of environments. So basically this was a machine, right? What we are trying to do by writing that statement is, I'm going to tell that, okay, 127.0.0.1, and my host port is 8080, and I want to map it to port 80. This is what I'm trying to do from there, rather than visually entering it. Okay. So it is allowing here from visually, but from CLI, it is not allowing it. That's the whole problem. Now, if I do localhost colon 8080. So this is a feature, but the problem is it is not allowing it from CLI. That's the whole point. Okay, fine. So I don't want to waste the time further. I would restart this and I would show it to you tomorrow on this stuff. Okay. So let me disable this feature. For some reason it is not working. Okay. And what is the next thing which I wanted? What is it? The private IP and the port forwarding part I would be looking into it later, but folders, right? Okay. Fine. So I am doing Vagrant init and boxes name because it comes up with documentation. Okay. And now if you come over here, okay, you are seeing this config.vm.synced folder, right? Yeah. Now I am over here. Okay. And let me do one thing. Yesterday we had songs folder, right? I'd copy this folder and I'd put it over here. Okay. So where is my test? My test is over here. So I have to come one level up, and in one level up I would have songs. Okay. And this I want to map to some of the Linux folder. So config.vm.synced folder. This is the folders from your Vagrant file. So to come one level up, you have to do dot dot. Dot is the current folder. Dot dot takes you one folder top, and in there I have songs. And this I want to map in the Linux machine as songs. Okay. We all know, how many of you know mapping network drive? Okay. Don't know that. For example, in Windows you can map network drive, and you can just say that my P drive is going to be some path of your network share. So basically what happens is, along with all of your physical drives which you are seeing over here, there will be a network drive also, a mount will be created to it. Okay. This thing can be done in Linux also, and in Linux we call it as mount, and generally in Windows we call it as network drives. Okay. So that is the same thing which I am trying to do. So basically what I am trying to do over here is, the songs folder which I have in my Windows system, I am trying to create it as a mount on Linux system. Okay, so that people can work on it. Fine. Now let me try to do Vagrant up. I've changed this. Machine was not started. If it was started, I would have done Vagrant reload. So let me do Vagrant up. Even if you do reload, it will work, because it was not started. It would tell that this machine is not started, and it would try to reload. If you see now the port forwarding, it is automatically doing 22. It has mapped to 2200, because if you remember, there is another virtual machine which is running, which has taken 2222 already. So that's why it is called as an automatic provisioning, where it changes the port numbers automatically. Fine. Okay. So now let us see what happens. Vagrant SSH. Okay. And after this, let me become a root user, and let me execute a command called as df -h. df -h is list of all the mounts on this Linux machine. Are you seeing any mount called as /songs? Yes. And you are also seeing a mount called as /vagrant. So these are the two things which are already appearing over here. So I can go into cd /songs and ls. getting this. So any mount on your Windows machine, you can create it to basically a Linux machine. For that, you have to give relative folder structure. And me Vagrant file nundi, from your Vagrant file, you have to give the relative folder structure. If you have to go one level top, use dot dot. Okay. Now what we do is, let us slightly change this. Okay. And let me come back to the Vagrant folder. Let us assume that I want to give an access to what? Vagrant zone. Okay. I want to create a mount for this Vagrant zone. Okay. So Vagrant, I am over here. So I have to come one level top, one more level, and in that one more level I have something called as Vagrant zone. Okay. So for this, I'd be writing dot dot and one more level, right? So one more dot dot slash. So one more dot dot will bring me to here, and then in here I have to go to Vagrant zone. So Vagrant zone. I think I'm modifying the wrong file. Yeah, it's okay. So, and then I would be calling it as Vagrant zone. Okay, fine. Let me look at the folder structure. This is test, right? Yeah, wonderful. So let me exit out of this. Any changes you want to make it apply, first save this file. Yeah, and then Vagrant reload. So Vagrant is nothing but it knows how to speak with your VirtualBox via CLI. And to be more specific, in VirtualBox, it uses a component of VirtualBox called as vbox manage. If vbox manage is giving error, it would throw back the error. If it is not, it would work for you. Okay. Similarly, VMware also has a CLI component. Hyper-V is not that CLI friendly, so that's why in Hyper-V most of the things are not supported. Yeah. For example, the network you cannot create. Private IP address or public IP address in Hyper-V you cannot create because that is not exposed by a CLI. Okay. Now, let me log in into this machine, Vagrant SSH. All right. And then sudo -i df -h. Are you seeing Vagrant zone? So any folder you can map, but the only thing is try to give the relative folder structure from Vagrant. Okay. Why relative? Why not the direct folder structure? Direct also work. You can give D drive : and all of that. But the problem is if you give the direct folder structure and give that file to one of your friend, his D drive, that path might not be appearing. And generally you would put these things in version control, whatever you want to share. So that's why it is always a safer practice to go with relative paths. Relative path and enti mana unna path nundi maatladtam. Absolute path is your system's path, where you say that D drive : A square zone : Vagrant zone. Okay. We don't want to give that because in your system you might have created A square zone in C drive. I'm using D drive. Why do I force you to use only D drive? That is not a right practice. So that's why I'm using basically relative kind of file or a folder kind of a stuff. So will you be able to create any folder syncing now? Yeah. Now you want to be secure. You don't want to create folder syncing at all. Okay. You are not speaking about folder syncing now. You don't want to sync the folder. Okay. So anything which you are seeing over here, right? Just take that. Okay. Take that file and go to Google, and you have to go to the Vagrant stuff. Okay. You are seeing the basic usage. Yes. Go into the Vagrant structure. It would explain further more about it. Okay. So you are seeing disabled option, right? Okay. So I want to use this disabled, and in disabled I want to tell it is true. Okay, so I want to disable folder syncing. Okay, which means to say that what is our df minus h over here? Forget about this Vagrant zone. I don't want to even enable this Vagrant folder syncing. Okay, so how do I do that? Are you getting the point? Now I have spoken about how to create a folder syncing. The next thing which I am trying to tell you is how to disable that. Okay, how to disable not this, because this can be disabled just by commenting that line. But how can I disable this? Okay, so if you want to disable this, just comment this and Vagrant reload. You would not be seeing Vagrant zone, but you would be seeing dot Vagrant. Okay, so for that reason, what I would do is dot Vagrant is a syncing between the current directory where you have Vagrant file, and there will be a mapping that would be created which is called as Vagrant, right? Yeah, this is the thing which it is creating. And now after that you would be writing exactly this statement saying disabled colon true. Okay, disabled colon true. Okay, you can ask me why do I want to do this. Okay, whether you like it or don't like it, unfortunately if you are working on CentOS boxes on Windows machines, if you enable folder syncing, which is by default it happens, okay, the boxes don't start. Red Hat మీద వర్క్ చేయాలనుకుంటే ఫోల్డర్ సింకింగ్ పెడితే వర్క్ అవుతుంది. దట్ ఈస్ అ known issue in Vagrant from probably from past 1 or 2 years. They are not fixing it. Okay, that is a mismatch between Windows, the way Windows works. But the same concept works if you try to take VirtualBox onto Ubuntu. So that's the reason I'm doing this. Now what should happen? There should not be any folder syncing. df minus h, if you type it, you should not see anything apart from the normal Linux kind of mounts. Okay, let us see whether it is happening or not. The moment it happens, I would move now to a Red Hat box or a CentOS box. Remember, Vagrant is never used in production. Vagrant is for simulating dev environments. మీ డెవలపర్కి క్విక్గా ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్ కావాలంటే ఇస్తాం కానీ ఇట్ ఈస్ నాట్ అబౌట్ ప్రొడక్షన్ ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్స్. నో ప్రొడక్షన్ ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్ is created with Vagrant. Remember that. Yeah. Now, Vagrant SSH, and I become a root user df minus h. Are you seeing /Vagrant now? Fine. So you can disable folder syncing also in the cases where you don't want it. Okay, fine. Now let me destroy this machine. I'm not interested in this machine now, because we have worked enough, or we have looked into the Ubuntu, right? Let us look into CentOS. Okay, quickly. Okay, I'd go into this drive, a square zone, Vagrant, test, and I'm removing all of this. Okay, since I have destroyed, it makes sense. Now I'd be typing Vagrant init CentOS /7. Okay, and whenever you are working on CentOS, remember you have to disable folder syncing, default folder syncing, which means that I have to say /Vagrant, and after that what is that I have written, comma, disabled colon true. So, okay, and now let me give it a private IP address as well. Let us see whether it works or not. 101. We have 100. I am giving 101. Yeah. So Vagrant up. Okay. Pardon me? Oh man. Okay. Thanks. Vagrant. Oh. Disabled spelling is wrong. Yeah. Okay. So we have only one prompt. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm interested also in my Ubuntu box which is running. Okay. I want to just see whether those two Ubuntu machines network works or not. Okay. If you remember, for Ubuntu machine, my IP address was 192.168.33.100. And for the machine which I am creating right now, it is 192.168.33.101. I want to ping from my Ubuntu machine to the CentOS machine to see if the network exists between both of them or not. Okay, fine. So D drive, A square zone, and then we have a Vagrant folder over here, Ubuntu for me, and then git bash here. Okay, just to understand that it is Ubuntu, I change the color because I generally forget what is that I am working on. Okay, so this is Ubuntu and white is CentOS, just for our understanding. Yeah, Vagrant status. Okay, it is running. So Vagrant SSH, and let us see whether this machine is up. Okay, it is fine. Let me see Vagrant status. This machine is also running. Vagrant SSH. Okay, so I would go to my Ubuntu machine and I would say if config, it is like IP config in Windows. Yeah, 192.168.33.100, and if config is not there, so I think I can do IP. Man, ping 192.168.33.100 happening. Yes. Okay, so private network is between you and any virtual machines which you create. Okay, so similarly I'll try to ping from here. Ping 192.168.10.33.101. Working? Yes. And I can log in from this machine into that machine or not. So Vagrant @ 192.168.33.101. So it says it is denied because the key based authentication is not set up. Okay. Now let us look into the other way around. Okay. So SSH Vagrant @ 192.168.33.100. Okay, I'm able to log in. I'm able to log in from CentOS to Ubuntu, but Ubuntu to CentOS is not happening. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, I can set up the key-based authentication. I don't want to get into Linux now, but the whole point is the basic networking is set up between you and all the virtual machines which you create. Right? Make sense? And if you even if you don't give an IP address, it would give an IP address in the private network itself. IP address if you go into the Vagrant if config and you just see the IP address, it would dynamically allocate an IP address, but it would not allocate what you want. So in this case, we are allocating the IP address which we want. Okay, especially whenever you want to set up Okay, a server client or a web server and a DB server kind of setup, there is no need for you to worry about the networking between them because it already is established. Okay, remember this happens when you are using private network. Okay, if it is public network, it becomes the responsibility of your Wi-Fi router or a DHCP server to allocate the IP addresses of it. Okay, make sense? So private networking, simulating within your own machine works out. Yeah. Okay. Now this Ubuntu machine is fine, but somehow CentOS machine is my DB server, and my DB server requires 1500 MB of RAM. Okay, but I have not given 1500 MB of RAM. Okay, so if you get into this test settings, you see what is the MB. By default, VirtualBox gives you a 512 MB of RAM. Oh man, did I? Okay. By mistakenly, I have clicked the hibernate kind of stuff. Okay, let it be. Let me power off the machine. It's okay. Fine. So by default, it is allocating 512 MB. But for your application to work, it requires 1500 MB. How do I change those values? So whenever you are changing the memory of it, okay, remember you are seeing this section, right? Okay, you can just remove this. But the problem is this is in the block over here. So you also have to remove these two things. So let me show this again. Okay, I can simply remove this, but this is defined within this block. So that's why it becomes my responsibility to also make sense. Yeah. Okay. And now I'd go into my CentOS machine and then I would say Vagrant reload. Remember, any configuration change will not be applied automatically until unless you reload. If you reload only, then only it will take effect. Yeah. Okay. And the RAM which you are seeing over there is taken from your laptop's RAM. So if your laptop has 4 GB of RAM, you cannot allocate 5 GB on a virtual machine because already it takes physically from your RAM. So always ensure that this is possible only when your system has free memory space. If it doesn't have, it will not happen. It will throw an error saying that there is no enough memory for me to allocate. Okay. So my machine's free memory, let us assume it is 5 GB. So it is not safe to allocate 5 GB to it. Okay. Then your operating system will not be responding. Okay. Try to stay within limits. Yeah. Now, what is it? 1024. 1024 ichama? Yeah. You have given 1024, right? If I have given 1500, it would be 1500 MB. So basically, you have to change that number to whatever it is want. And the number which you are seeing there, the unit is MB. For example, if you want 4 GB of RAM, make it 4096. So that's how it works, right? Fine. So can we give IP address to a system now? Can we change memory? Yeah. Then hard disk. Next, that is the next important thing, right? Yeah. So don't worry about the hard disk in case of any virtualization providers these days, because they try to take the space from your current directory which you are launching. For example, it is as good as in D drive, in ASPR zone, in Ansible, let us assume, here I want to copy a movie. My movie size is 1 GB. Okay. So when it will throw an error, when my D drive doesn't have 1 GB space. Do you agree to that? Yes. So the free memory for this is whatever is free in D drive. Do you agree to that? The same logic applies there also. So if you see the space of that, whatever is the free space, if you do df minus h, it will show you the sizes, right? It was showing the sizes, right? And the size it would show is the free space available in D drive. So that's how it works. So there is nothing to worry about the hard disk sizes. Okay, so that's why these days we are not worrying too much on hard disk sizes. All right. Okay. Now I have created a Vagrant, and in the Vagrant I have done work. Okay, I'm doing the installations, and then I want to share that Vagrant file. If I share that Vagrant file, he would get Ubuntu Trustee 64. Okay, for example, let me explain what the concept it is. ఇప్పుడు నేను మీకు ఈ Vagrant file ఇచ్చాను అనుకోండి. I have given this Vagrant file to you. You would be getting a Ubuntu Trustee 64 machine, but in that machine I have installed Apache server, and if you launch it in your machine, you will not be getting Apache server, right? Because that is the stuff which I have done manually. Do you agree to that? So if I give this file to you, you would be getting only Ubuntu Trustee 64 machine, not the Apache which I have installed. Okay, what if I want to share, okay, some setup, some classical or standard kind of a setup? Okay, so for example, what is that I want to share is, I want to share with you guys, okay, a Ubuntu machine which creates a Ubuntu machine with Apache installed. Because in your office the web server might be Apache, and from here you might start working on it. Okay, so this is what I want to give you, not Ubuntu. If it is Ubuntu, why do you need my Vagrant file? You can execute the command Vagrant in it, Ubuntu Trustee 64, and you can execute Vagrant up, right? నా ఫైల్ తో మీకు పనే ఉంది, మీరే క్రియేట్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. నేను ఏమీ మార్చినప్పుడు నా ఫైల్ తో పనే ఉంది. వాట్ ఇస్ ద నీడ్ విత్ మై ఫైల్ ఇఫ్ ఐ హావ్ నాట్ చేంజ్డ్ ఎనీథింగ్? ఓకే, ప్రాబ్లీ I might have increased memory, that you can also do. Okay, so what I want to do is, I want to have some Apache installed, so that whenever you take my Vagrant file and you do Vagrant up, it will install Apache automatically, and there is no need for you to execute those steps manually. Shall we look into this feature? Okay, so whenever something is starting, you want some extra steps to be installed. Okay, whenever your machine is starting for the first time, you want additional steps to be done, and this is called as provisioning. Provisioning is executing some Linux statements while your machine is created for the first time. Okay, fine. So I would not do a very what do you say, very difficult provisioning, but let me take simple route. Okay, so let me open Ubuntu machine, and in the Ubuntu machine you are seeing something at the bottom. Okay, fine. So I'm just saying that my config is shell, and in shell what has to happen, all the commands I have given in inline, and these are the commands that get executed. Okay, so apt-get update and apt-get install -y. If I give this file to you, whenever you do Vagrant up, what happens is, it would try to also execute the statements which you are seeing over here. Okay, then later on I would show you a step where it would not be this simple installation, but a bit more complicated installation. But for now, let us try to uncomment this. What is the provisioning? Provisioning are certain steps that should happen, okay, when you are creating this machine. So I'd go over here, okay, and let me destroy the machine, because I want to create a new machine altogether. Okay, Vagrant destroy. Yes, because this machine already has Apache server installed, right? So what is the fun? So I would do Vagrant up. See the log statements, they give you enough information about it now. Okay, they would start Ubuntu, and after they start Ubuntu, they try to execute some commands which we have given over there. Okay, see, is it executing inline script now? Apt-get update is what it is trying to install. Okay, so if I share this file, anyone who does Vagrant up, these two commands will be executed, and Apache will be ready on his machine once the machine is ready. So there is no need for him to execute these commands. Okay. For example, you want to give your team the Tomcat environment. So what you would do in the provisioning, you would write the statements what installs Tomcat. Okay. So we would do that in one of the other setup right now. Yeah. So did you understood the concept? Provisioning is the set of Linux commands that execute immediately after your machine is created, so that your machine will have that environment while starting itself. So there is no need for me to install Apache now. Okay. I do once this machine is up, that means that it has Apache. Make sense? Right? Now, similarly, I want to have Tomcat in one of these machines. Okay. So I would go to test, and then this is a CentOS machine, right? So I have to change my commands. CentOS steps for installing Tomcat are yum install -y Tomcat. Okay. And then I would say Vagrant destroy. Oh, what is that I have messed up? Oh, I should have this. Yum install -y Tomcat. Fine. Remember, this is the start of the commands and this is the end of the commands. Whatever comes in between these two statements are your commands. So you can write as many lines as you want, but still it is not a better way. The better way is to write a shell file. That's fine, but this is the first step. Okay. Now Vagrant destroy. Okay. Yes. This machine is started, right? And now this machine's IP address is what? 192.168.33.100 Ubuntu's IP address, right? So 192. Am I getting Ubuntu page? I have not even logged into the machine. I have destroyed the machine and I have created the machine, and while creating the machine I have given the provisioning steps. Then inka machine loki login kuda avala, right? Yeah. Over here I have to do one more step to do this. So in Red Hat machines generally the services don't start. So service Tomcat start. Fine. Now let me do Vagrant up. So if I give that file to you now on my Red Hat, on my CentOS machine, you would get Tomcat automatically. On my Ubuntu machine, you would get Apache automatically, because I have written provisioning script. I have written provisioning script. Okay. So there is some question. Vagrant has a lot of compatibility issues like version of the particular OS. Yes. If you are working on Windows 8, forget about Vagrant. Vagrant will never work there. Windows 8 లో మీకు Vagrant పనిచేసిందంటే మీ అంత అదృష్టవంతులు ఇంకెవరు లేరు, లాటరీలు కొనండి. It will not work. Yes, Vagrant is stable on Windows 7 and 10. On any other flavor of Windows, it is not that stable. Yeah, it is an open source product, guys, so it will have its limitations. It is not hugely funded project also, but still it is doing all of this. Yeah. So how to provision without the Vagrant? So you mean provision without the Vagrant? Are you asking with respect to the virtual machines context, or are you trying to tell that why do I need to write the shell file in there? Why can't I write it on the other file and then call it? That we would be doing it. it is, if it is in the virtual machine, every virtual machine has its own way. For example, in VirtualBox, okay, you can you would have something called as init or something like initialization stuff, which you can add it, but it is not guaranteed that every provider will do it. Vagrant will try to inject the code while starting, and then it will try to make it work. Okay, so provisioning without Vagrant on every other virtual machine is quite different. It is not the same across. But if it is in cloud, yes, there is a way. If it is in cloud, we have something in EC2 machines or in cloud or in Azure machines, we have a similar way called as bootstrapping, is a way where we try to add our statements, right? Okay. So let us see what is happening over here. So loaded, it has started already inline script. It would try to install Tomcat. Okay, the moment it starts the Tomcat, we can give that machine's IP address colon 8080 now, because Tomcat runs on port 88. Yeah. Vagrant also has provisioning which you can do with configuration management tools. For the new people, I think it is something which you might not have learned yet, but in Vagrant, I can provision with Chef. I can provision the environment with Ansible. I can provision with Puppet. I can use all of these to create my own environment in Vagrant also. Okay, but that is too much for a Vagrant machine to learn. So that we generally don't do that. This is a dev environment, right? So we don't do it. Or we would rather go the Terraform route or a Packer route to have everything set up. So is it trying to install something? Okay, so this is how we save our work. Okay, for example, for today, what you can do is, okay, whatever there are certain virtual machines which or Vagrant exercises which I have done in this path. This is our GitHub's version. You can make a note of this. Okay, get into any folder of this and do Vagrant up. Okay, github.com/a2zone, and in that you would have something called as Vagrant zone, and this will give you a whole lot of examples. So for example, yesterday Dev was asking me about multi-machine. So how do I set up multi-machine? So you can go into this path, okay, and then you are seeing Vagrant file, okay, and in here you would see the multi-machine setup. Okay, so if you see, he is trying to set up two machines. One he calls it as web server, and the other one he calls it as DB server. In the both he is using HashiCorp/precise32 box. Okay, but you can replace it with Ubuntu Trusty 64. Okay, and then if you come at the bottom, provisioning. Okay, provisioning, I think I have not done it. I have done it in a different file, but you can do this. You can add as many boxes as you want, but the whole point is, for the Vagrant to work, your physical machine should have enough memory. Yeah, so I have launched two boxes. If I want, I can launch one more saying that config.vm.define cache, do cache, just exactly copy paste that stuff and try to change the details whatever you want. And if you see here, the provisioning, right, provisioning is shell, and till now whatever we are using is inline, but now he is using something called as path. Path will tell the file's path, and if you look into this folder, there are two files called as install Apache and install SQL, and install apache.sh is nothing but the same commands what we are trying to execute. Okay, and install MySQL will do this, or install database. This is one of the commands which they are executing. So you can write shell files also over there. Okay, so yeah, it would take a lot of time. It has to install Java on our network, and then it has to work, right? So it will take time, but you got an essence of it. So I can basically share any folder of my system into Linux. How do I do it? I use something called as shared folder sharing, and the next thing which we can do is we can change the RAM of it. Default memory that is allocated for the VirtualBox environment is 512 MB. But if you want, you can increase it more. For that, you need to make necessary changes in the section. Okay. And after that, the next thing which we have looked at is something called as provisioning. Provisioning is a script that gets installed while you are initially creating the virtual machine. So during that point, you can call the shell script. Shell script is a better way to do it. But remember, Chef or this Vagrant has support to different configuration management tools also. For example, you can use, if you know Chef, in the provisioning you can write Chef script. If you know Ansible, in the provisioning you can write Ansible script. So that's how it works. But generally we don't do that. Okay, because for some of you people, we have learned Packer already. For most of you would be learning Packer very soon. In Packer we would be creating the VirtualBox image which contains everything. So that's why we would not use that. We would rather use it in a different way. Okay. So Tomcat service is also started. Okay. Did we give this machine an IP address? Yeah, I think we have given 101, right? 192.33.101:. Okay. Vagrant SSH and sudo service. What was the service? Tomcat status running. Okay. Man. Sudo yum install wget -y. Okay. So somehow it is not giving us a web page even in the local machine. Okay, that's fine. But did it started? Yeah. So any stuff you can do in the provisioning. Okay. For example, if you want to give a dev environment with some set of installations, first write a shell file with that. That's where Linux every time comes and hits you. That's why Linux is important for us. For doing any installation, you would be basically writing the Linux statements. Okay. But okay, the better way is not to do this. Okay, not to write in this fashion, but the better way is always to write a shell file and then call it. Okay, so the shell file calling and the private IP addressing, these are the parts which I would be discussing with you tomorrow, and then we would be starting